Welcome back to Tales from the Bridge. In this episode, Hugh Howey joins us once again. Sam and Kevin and myself sit down with Hugh and have a great conversation. We could have Hugh back all the time. He is so fun to talk to, and you really leave this episode feeling better about the world and a lot of things. So we really appreciate your time, Hugh. Thank you so much. All right, everyone's waiting for us. Let's make our way over to the bridge.
We're excited to welcome Hugh Howey back to the bridge. Hugh is the best-selling author behind Silo, which is heading into its third season on Apple TV. He's also the author of Beacon 23 on MGM+. He's also something of a pioneer in the self-publishing world, and he helps elevate emerging authors in several ways, including his self-published science fiction competition and opening up his Silo series for fan fiction. He's also an accomplished sailor and is currently circumnavigating the globe. If you check him out on Instagram, you'll quickly discover why he's a hero to sci-fi nerds everywhere. So lots to cover. Hugh, you'll be excited to learn that as a second appearance on the show makes you now an official friend of the pod, and you now qualify for a 10% discount on all our merch. So take advantage.
That's awesome. I thought we were already friends, so this is news to me.
No,
we actually don't have
second
merch.
time. Two times, then you're a friend, Hugh.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We're on virtual hugging terms now.
That's right. You know, we're excited to sort of see what you've been up to, see if there's a Silo update that you can give us, and then we kind of want to jump into some AI stuff. So maybe we'll just kick off with like what you've been up to lately.
Well, mix of writing and sailing. I just turned in a short story a couple weeks ago that's going to go at the end of a new special edition of Dust that's coming out. Like I think the Shift special edition came out recently. When we did Wool about a year ago, we weren't even sure if we would get the go-ahead to do the other two books, but the first book sold out. So it's for the people who are completionists. They're going to get all three, and each one has got a brand new story at the end that I wrote just for this edition. And each one's like a little vignette into perhaps a different silo, and they were a lot of fun to write. And this last one was one of my favorite things that I've written in a long time. So got that turned in while I was sailing across the Atlantic with my wife. We just moved aboard a new catamaran that we built in France and just took delivery in July, got rid of all of our land-based stuff. And so we're full-time liveaboard. This is my third boat since I was, I guess, 20 years old. I moved on to my first boat. So this is, it looks like the sailing thing is something that happened because of the writing, but it's the other way around. The sailing facilitated the writing and starting many, many years ago.
Well, that's right. You were a yacht captain for some time, weren't you?
Yeah, so that I kind of snuck into that career. I didn't even know that was a career when no one told me when I was in high school. My guidance counselor was pretty limited in what the things I could expect to do in my life. But I moved on to a sailboat when I was in college just because I met a friend of a friend who was living on a boat. And I was like, wow, that seems smarter than living in an apartment. And so I bought a cheap, tiny sailboat, the kind of thing that most people would not be comfortable living on, like no bathroom, no shower, no refrigeration. And that was my home for 5 years. I dropped out of college and sailed down to the Bahamas and got my captain's license, my scuba certification, just like my towboat certification, just anything I could get to work on the water. And I ended up turning into like a 10-year career as a yacht captain. But the whole time I was doing it, my dream was to get back on my own boat and sail around the world. And last time I did that, the only thing missing was like my perfect travel companion. And so when I got married a few years ago, my wife, who's a pilot, she flies seaplanes. She's a sailor. She's got her captain's license as well. She was the one who was like, let's get a boat and go see the world. And so I'm basically just following her around now.
That's fantastic.
That is. I have to ask, how long did it take to get, and where from Europe, where in Europe were you when you left for the Caribbean, and how long was that trip?
We started in France. We first sailed east to Italy and then came back to France and then went to Gibraltar, passed through, out of the Med into the Atlantic. It took, let's see, about 2 weeks to get from France to the Canary Islands down off of Africa. And then from the Canary Islands, it took 2 weeks to get to the Caribbean. And then we just been bopping around here. We actually ended up in St. Bart's for New Year's, and it was funny because like my social media feed was all about like there's like a bunch of really large yachts there. What people talk about is like how many small sailboats were there, but my social media feed was just all about like we should drop a nuke on St. Bart's to get rid of all the billionaires. And I was like, man, like let me see season 3 and 4 Silo before you nuke me off the planet, please.
Couple more weeks before you start nuking, please, please.
Exactly.
Since we're there, can you tell us about that? I remember it was kind of big news that DiCaprio was there, Jeff Bezos was there. Did you just kind of park and hang out in the area, or is this a party that everyone kind of joins and goes on mainland, or what happens at the billionaire party?
It was my first time in St. Bart's for New Year's. I've been many times before, just working as a yacht captain and then on my own boats. Um, it's a bunch of different parties. Like, we just had friends on our boat. People go ashore and go to these crazy clubs with DJs. Everyone I know who did that regretted it. The real fun is like being out on the boats. It's the most like Burning Man kind of vibes I've had outside of Burning Man, just because all the boats are lit up at night and it just feels like you're deep playa. And but we were anchored there for 2 weeks. We had the most amazing spot, like some of the best snorkeling I've seen in the Caribbean, right off our boats. We were just snorkeling every day. We had fish living under the boat that were basically our pets, these remoras. We had 7 of them by the time we left that were just living under our boat, and we were feeding them every day. And yeah, like it's a beautiful place, and it was full of like amazing people. But yeah, it's highly recommend it. As soon as you become a billionaire, I you should head to St. Bart's for New Year's.
So, do you find like now that you're on the boat, is it easier to focus on writing? Is it easier to work?
It's honestly the same as at any point in my writing career, I've had something that consumed some other part of my day. So I was a bookseller for years while I was trying to make it as a writer. I worked just 30 hours a week, making $10 an hour at a little independent bookstore. And that took up a lot of my week, but I just wrote around that time. Once the writing took off, suddenly I had all kinds of obligations. I just said yes to everything. So I was like doing book tours and speaking events and book signings and all kinds of stuff and answering a lot of emails and anything on social media. I was just responding to everything. And so I had to like work my writing around that. This is as relaxed as it's ever been, where I have as many hours in the day as I want. And now that the boat is kind of together and launched and we're cruising, it's much easier. But I will say, like, I noticed with this last short story that the I have way more fun like with the craft than I used to. Like I used to just like I was impatient to get the story out, and now I'll work on a, something for a long time just to fiddle with it and like I don't want to say perfect it because I don't know that my writing is any better, but I like spending a lot more time with it than I used to. So yeah, that's a part of writing that's kind of become interesting and new to me. Like my first book, I wrote really quickly, and everything I've written has slowed down and gotten more fun by slowing down. I think just because the pressure's kind of off now, I'm mostly just writing for myself.
Can you tease the short stories a little bit for us, or are we just going to have to go get the books?
No, I can tease them. So there's the two of them are already out. I guess the only way to read them is to get these special editions. I honestly I'm not even sure if there's an ebook version of this. Like maybe it's in print only, which would be kind of interesting. I love like the false scarcity of these things. Um, yeah, this last one is about this silo has a tree and I won't say which silo it is, but there's an old tree in a farm that maybe never meant was never meant to get this old. Like it's brushing the ceiling, the limbs are propped up with, crutches. It's kind of inspired by this tree outside of Charleston, South Carolina. that's, hundreds of years old, and it's called the Angel Oak. It's just an amazing thing to see if you're in the area. And but it's dead. And this guy from uh, Recycle and Reclamation has the task, because wood, paper is like very rare in the silo, and because the tree is dead, it's going to be partitioned up and sold. And so as he's hacking up and getting rid of this tree, he meets someone in the farms that kind of changes his perspective on life. And yeah, it's um, not too long, but there's a lot packed in there, and it actually ties into the events of the silos in a way that becomes almost like an origin story, and which is kind of cool. It comes at the very end of Dust, this little short story, and it kind of points back to the very beginning of Wool.
Oh, very cool.
Since we spoke to you a year or 2.5 years ago, the show has seen many successes. Season two, and then season three is filmed. As far as we know, we just don't know when it's coming out yet. People that love it absolutely love it. So, has the show influenced your writing and how I guess, what you receive from the fans? Does that affect your writing?
It doesn't affect my book writing, but I've been doing more writing for TV and film and stuff, like some things that are still in development, like still working on. Who knows if they'll ever get made. Watching Silo get made and go through production has changed the way that I write for adaptation. Because you just understand, like, you just can't create a character for a scene. You got to like use the same characters because of casting and cost. You just can't, like, come up with new settings for the fun of it, like I do when I write a novel. Like, you really have to think of, like, how's this actually going to get made, and you see the dollars on every page. Otherwise, you've got no chance of it getting made. But when I'm writing a book, honestly, like, I'm not going to limit myself with a novel thinking about some kind of adaptation, because just things don't get adapted. Like, why limit yourself? So I write with like unlimited budget, unlimited imagination, and if something gets adapted, like, okay, now it's your problem on how you're gonna simplify to make this work on the screen.
And so, are you writing treatments? Or are you doing actual screenplays? What are you working on in those terms?
Yeah, screenplays. So we've got a show in development at AMC. It's a brand new world. It was actually a book idea, and I worked with AMC on Beacon 23 and Silo. It was with AMC before it went off to Apple. They actually like co-developed the first season, and we were on a phone call one day, and they were like, what else have you got? And I was working on this novel idea, and I just told them the elevator pitch for the novel, and they were like, "We'll take it." And it's not how it does not work in Hollywood like that. It's never worked for me since, and it'll never work like that again. But it was one of those pitches that the words just came out just right. Like, it was so seductive, and so they wanted it. And that's something that me and my writing partner, Matt Michelatos, have been um, working on for years now. And we've built out the world and the Bible, and we've written a pilot, and now we have producers coming on. It's a very slow, long process. And for me, it doesn't bother me, because I'm in no hurry. I'm never like calling agents saying, "What's going on with this?" I just ignore it and work on the stuff that I can do. And then I get a call like, "Okay, we're going to the next phase." And then that happened again recently with another show that we can't announce yet, but like, we just signed the contracts last week to write an animated horror TV show that it's like one of my favorite book ideas that Matt and I have come up with. And again, we've turned it into an adaptation, and we've taken it out. We thought it'd be live action at first, but then we started doing some calls with some animated people, and adult animation has gotten like really hot lately with Arcane and Invincible, and quite a few other like great shows. Even the Demon Hunter phenomenon. So when we had this pitch, they were like, "Yeah, And so we're now getting paid to work on that. And those are the kind of things that I'm interested in. And in Hollywood is like, I really don't want to work too hard on stuff until someone's paying me for it. Because it's kind of frustrating. You can write spec scripts all day long and never get paid and nothing ever gets made. And I'm used to whatever I write, I self-publish and at least my mom gets to read it. And I'd rather my mom read something than producers that get notes about it.
I think that's a really good philosophy. I think a lot of people who work in like film, television, the arts do a lot of free work. Like nowhere else will you see job boards that say pro bono or low no pay, right? Like it'll be or have to someone say, well, it'll up your profile, and you're like, that never happens. Yeah, but now one last tack on season three for Silo. Are you able to share like how closely season three is keeping up with the books and where in the series we are with season three?
Yeah, so seasons one and two basically told the story in wool, and at the very end of season two, you got a little teaser of stuff that you might recognize from Shift. Um, we were we couldn't really tell Shift in season three and then Dust in season four because we wouldn't be using Rebecca for if anybody's read the books, like I took a huge departure when I wrote the sequel to Wool. And so what we did is combined Shift and Dust into one interlaced story, and we tell that over two seasons, seasons three and four. So you're going to be getting Dust and Shift stuff like immediately in episode one of season three. And season three is completely filmed. It's already cut together. So, I can watch it, but you guys can't. And it'll be out this year. We haven't announced the date yet, but I've got a pretty good idea of when it's going to come out. And we're 110, 120 days into shooting on season four, so that'll wrap pretty soon. And then I hope the time between three and four is even shorter than between two and three. We dealt with COVID and writer strikes and all kinds of stuff filming the first couple of seasons. So, but it's been smooth sailing with three and four, and hopefully we get them out pretty quick on each other in the next year and a half or so. But it's exciting for me to have two more seasons to look forward to. But I'll also like, there's gonna be a wrap party soon, and that's it for this show, and that's kind of really bittersweet for me.
Yeah, of course, of course. It's been like a pretty wild journey, I can imagine. I think uh, you mentioned that you're looking into animation and going into that space, and we've sort of talked about like how you're writing for under different constraints sometimes when you're thinking of writing for like writing a treatment for TV and film. I guess those like for animation, you don't have to worry as much, right? You can go to anywhere you want, eh?
It's so liberating. Like we've had these characters we've been working with for this show for a long time. And just last week, now that we're, have the green light to start writing, I'm like, maybe this character is missing an arm, and Matt's like, no, maybe he's missing a leg. Or like in animation, you just make it stylized and it's cool, and you don't have to green screen anything. And so if we want to bring the limb back later, we can. And so we sound like two kids who are making up the rules of it's like Calvin Ball. We're like, you could do that because I have a force field. Like, well, my laser ray is, specially designed to pierce force fields. We just sound like idiot kids now because our imagination's our only limiting factor. And that's the really cool thing about animation. And the styles of animation people are doing now, it's just all very different. Like I remember seeing Into the Spider-Verse for the first time and realizing like Sony really broke out with something that, we've never seen before. And since then we've seen lots of different new shows come out with a new style,
Mhm.
and that's liberating as well. So it's an exciting time, honestly, for animation. If you enjoy watching it, if you're a creator, it's like the beginning of a heyday, I think.
That's awesome. Awesome to see. One conversation we've been having is about AI, and we noticed your blog post recently about AI writing, and you talk about AI writing versus authoring. And I hope this isn't too hard a turn, But just because we've been this is a conversation we keep coming back to, and I find my position on it keeps shifting, where I'm against something, and then I'm like, oh, okay, it's okay here, or it's okay here, or I could see the benefits here. Like, so for me, I keep on moving towards adoption in ways I didn't expect to, say, 6 months ago. And but I was wondering if you could walk us through your take, and we could sort of circle that for a little bit, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we could do a whole nother blog post or video chat just on AI. There's a lot to cover. Um, I think the one of the things I'm seeing is like a lot of emotional reactions to it, which is natural, especially in the writer space. Anytime there's something new, I've been through this so many times. I went through it with Amazon launching in online bookstores. Like this was it was existential threat, and then it was e-readers, and then it was self-publishing, and then it was fan fiction, and then it was like open sourcing your worlds and almost any audiobooks. I still see people arguing that like listen to an audiobook is not reading. So I don't know what it is about the literary landscape, but we just love arguing about silly things. Um, and this is like the latest. It's like the latest new thing, and it's really disturbing a lot of people. There's a ton of new content like flooding the market because people can just click a button and stuff comes out. We had that problem before AI where people were just like turning Wikipedia entries into books, ebooks. And I've had my books just someone would find a pirated copy and paste it, change the title, upload it. And a lot of authors have dealt with that. Um, so there's always been like almost too much content because of how quickly and easily you can upload stuff. And all these concerns come down to like authoring as a career, like as an income generator. So these are things we have to navigate um, if we're trying to make money in the writing space. None of these things deal with the actual writing. And my blog post that you're talking about, I talk about like hobbies that my mom and my sister have, and they do them without any expectation that they're gonna pay the rent with them or even make any money. Their hobbies cost them money, a lot of money sometimes. And writing is this weird hobby where there's always the chance, you write something, you're like, well, maybe this will go viral, or maybe this will become a bestseller. Maybe Oprah will tell everyone to buy this book. Um, and so when you see technology like AI move in, it seems to threaten that dream. And the reality, the really harsh reality, is that this dream is almost always impossible. And if you went into it thinking, I'm gonna pursue this in order to make money, I don't know, you don't sound much different to me than the AI companies, which are just in it for money. If you're doing it because you love the craft and you want to create new worlds and you want to play in these spaces and you've loved reading your whole life and now you want to make books, then this doesn't affect you at all. Like you just feel free to continue doing that. So I think it's okay to hold these two like kind of mutually incompatible viewpoints where as an author, you're really upset. Like this is going to make things even harder. And it was hard to begin with. As a writer, it's like I don't see how it affects me at all. Um, my kind of third perspective is that I'm just pro writing. Like the reason I've been like big on fan fiction my whole career is fan fiction for writers is similar to picking up a guitar and learning Stairway to Heaven. Like you don't pick up a guitar and write original tunes. Like you first learn a lot of covers until you get the basics, and then you start branching out. And fan fiction for me has always been like this amazing bridge to getting addicted to the full writing experience. And it's like the training wheels. My hope is that AI will do the same thing for another generation of writers where they'll use AI and they'll see that what it's doing is not so mysterious and it's something that they can replicate and that it's more fun to do it on your own. Um, I see I'm going on forever about this, but one more example is I'm an avid chess player. Computers have almost solved chess. I mean, it is like they're so much better than the best humans on the planet. It's not even close. Um, if I get online to play you in chess, I could play myself against you, or I could sit there with a chess program open and destroy you using a computer. Like even when writing software is writing Pulitzer level material, me sitting there and using it to do it would be really weird. It would be like it'd be like me using a chess bot to beat you in chess. I don't play chess to be the best in the world. I play it because it exercises my mind and I enjoy it, and I write for the same reason. However, there are people who get online and use chess bots to destroy people, and they get caught for cheating, and they get banned from chess.com and Chess and other websites. Why they do that? No idea. But that is, I think, what people are worried about, that there's going to be people using AI to cheat at writing, and it's going to bother me as much as it bothers me that people cheat at chess. Like I'm sad for them; they're missing out on something, but it doesn't threaten me or bother me at all.
It's interesting because when I was reading your blog post about this, it occurred to me that an analogy could be somebody who wants to garden for the enjoyment of gardening versus somebody who's farming and they use the large combines and tractors, what have you. You're going to use the tools that you have at your disposal to be effective and efficient if you're a farmer. But if you're a gardener, you can go into gardening competitions and you can show how big your rutabaga is and your beautiful flowers. You're right. You're not going to use most farm equipment in that context, and that's a different thing. I just heard recently that the music platform Bandcamp has made the decision that they are going to be a purely human-generated medium for music, and to me, that's like an avenue for gardening. Like that's and I suspect we may see, and you may already have noticed this, but some publishers saying this is just for humans, and there's a market for that. But I love this quote in your article. If I'm just going to read it, it says, "Some people just want to read a book that doesn't already exist, and however it gets created is not important to them. The book is the thing, not the process." And I think that's kind of the key message. It's really, it can be painful, but I think it's also a fact.
Yeah, we're going to have books that are generated as you read them, and they're tailored to the reader. And so, like, I love John D. MacDonald's Travis McGee books, and John's no longer with us. There's no more Travis McGee books, but one day my Kindle will say, "Do you want to read a new one?" Like we've created one, and it's in his style, and I would never tell it wasn't him. And I might read it, and I can't even talk to anyone about it because no one else will ever read it. It's made just for me. And as a reader, I'm going to be delighted by that. As a writer, it's gonna there. I'm gonna lose potential income because of these tools. Right now, we're losing the income to people just scrolling social media or watching any one of a dozen streaming services. Like we complain about losing readers without really talking about what we can do to win them back. It's just like constant complaining. And the only thing I can control is writing. And if I can't make a living off of it, I'll go back to, driving boats or whatever I was doing before. I never expected to make money doing this. And I think that puts me in maybe having a different perspective. And I know there are authors out there right now who like depend on it and think that it's the only way they'll ever make money and it's the only thing they have to offer. And so I'm being flippant and discounting what they do. I'm not. I feel for everybody. Like programmers are not being hired right now. If you see the employment curves in tech, it's insane. Like productivity is still going up and hiring is flat and overall numbers in the field are down. Um, there was a company that just announced like yesterday that they had an AI one shot at 3 million lines of code browser that renders websites, and it just the program it took like 2 weeks, but it just ground out like a browser from nothing off a prompt. And so the existential threats are everywhere. We need to have a larger conversation than writing about how to deal with this. But from my perspective, as someone who loves to read, it's a net positive. As someone who loves other people learning to write, it's a net positive. As a writer, it's it doesn't affect me at all because I can continue to write just like I can continue to play chess. As an author, it will certainly hurt my income, and I never, that's not something I ever expected to have anyway. So
Yeah, I wonder if part of it is that we don't have the infrastructure to accommodate those people who find themselves unemployed, and that's where a lot of the animosity came from. Like if we had something like universal income or ways for people to shift and manage that change to their lives as these systems come on, because it's not going away. So how do we adapt to what's coming in, and how do we look at the fact that maybe down the road we're going beyond work? Kevin, you were just down at the what was it, the Consumer Electronics Show? I don't want to
Consumer
talk for you there
Electronics
on
Show,
that one.
yeah, in Las Vegas.
It was all robots, right? Like AI robots. And if you have an AI robot that can come in and clean your kitchen for you or do your plumbing, whose job does that take? And so I don't know, is that part of it? Is this part of the debate too? People looking at potential unemployment, or are they also, or is it just that they feel that there's a lack of effort and you didn't earn that book because you didn't put all of that work into it?
Sam, I think that's a huge part of it for quite a number of people. Like when I started being like kind of vocal about my journey to getting published, I was getting so much vitriol from people who went through the whole agenting process and querying and everything. And because I was skipping what had been really painful for a lot of people. And as I was doing it, I was trying to like open doors for a lot of other writers and say like, hey, I think and this is before I made it, before I had any success. I was in forums for writers and saying, I think this is the way I'm going to go about it, and it might make more sense than the way we have been doing in the past. And I got so much grief because I was like missing this hazing ritual that I should have been doing. And so I recognize like there's going to be AI authors out there, not authors who use AI, who have a lot of success, and they're going to get the same kind of grief that I got as someone who's self-published, because they're not suffering enough. And it's emotional. I get it. Like I understand it, but it doesn't mean it's rational. Um, what we do as a society with like robotics and AI and job displacement, um, I think we're a little late in being worried because we've already failed. Like and I can only talk about the United States as someone who's like intimate with what it's like to live there, but um, we haven't had a change in our minimum wage in forever. Like housing has gotten unaffordable, education's gotten unaffordable. People aren't having kids because like what you pay for daycare to have a second job like cancels itself out. Like um, so we've failed in the pre-AI era. I think it's going to be even worse in the post-AI era. And um, coming, but I think we're going to have to rethink how we govern and manage ourselves and how we integrate technology into our lives, because what we're doing right now is just not even healthy. Like people aren't the happiness metrics are alone should be worrying to anybody, like especially for young people. Um, the suicide ideation, the feeling of loneliness and helplessness, and like not being optimistic about the future. I grew up at a time when I was just reading Popular Mechanics and like flying cars in the year 2000, and like things were just going to get better and better. And I feel like not enough people share that optimism anymore, and we have to get back to that. And how we do that, I mean, we've got to get first of all younger people in politics so that people think about data and think about technology when they're governing. Like how are these AI companies allowed to just train models and basically get a light slap on the wrist? How is our data being sold instead of us owning it? It's because people in Congress don't even know what any of these issues are, and they're in the pockets of the people who don't have our interest at heart. So we've got to start solving problems at like a root level before we like worry about what the robots are going to do. We've made way too many mistakes along the way to think that then the next problem is going to be the one that trips us up.
And I know that you're a part of a lawsuit with OpenAI in terms of trying to ensure that, permission is given before copyrighted material is trained on, right? That's something that you're involved with, right?
Yeah, my agent basically informed me that a bunch of my books were in the training data, and I honestly, uh, when I emailed back, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna file for anything because there's other authors in there, and if there's a shared pool, I would rather like more money go to other authors because I don't need the money. And she was like, it doesn't work that way. Like it's going to be a payout per author. So if you don't do it, the money doesn't go anywhere. And anything that I do, my agent gets a cut. So basically, me not doing something would have taken money out of my agent's pocket. So that was my whole like decision tree. Like I'm honestly too lazy. I hate like paperwork and red tape and all that stuff. So I wasn't even going to do anything. But it's you know, I was told if I didn't, it doesn't help anybody. So I should file the paperwork. And I totally support every other author filing this paperwork. The theft of works to train the AI, I'm 100% against. Like that was insane. But using that as your reason for being against AI is pretty, I think it's just trying to rationalize your hatred of AI because they could have had a perfectly strong model using just works in the public domain, or bought enough books to train or hired people out cheaper than what the lawsuits are going to cost them. So there were lots of ways they could have trained the data and we'd have the exact same models we have now. And you'd have to find some other reason to be angry at them. But I think you could be angry at the theft and the way the models were trained and kind of separate that from what you actually feel about the AI. Don't confuse the two.
Yeah, it's a complex issue, and you can have different views on it, and different parts of it can be problematic, and different parts of it can have opportunity, real opportunity. Indeed,
Totally.
when I was at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, I spoke to a guy who's brilliant and very creative, and he loves lit RPG. It's a genre of writing that you may be familiar with, and our listeners may be familiar with. But it has a gaming element, like video gaming element, and the majority of it is fantasy. So fantasy lit RPG, and he wants science fiction lit RPG. So he's been writing it, but he's been using AI to write it, and he's been releasing it on some mechanism like Wattpad or Medium. I can't remember, Railroad. And but in addition to that, and he has a community. People follow him, similar to how you did, Hugh, when you started self-publishing. And it's clear that it is AI generated, but it's filling a niche that isn't very robust. He's also created chatbots or specially trained AIs on his different characters who are up to speed on the history of all of his stories, and you can interact with the characters. So he's actually created this very unique, innovative approach that is AI driven simply because he wants to read, which is, I think, something that you were talking about. And when we're looking to the future, trying to figure out what is it that's going to bring people into reading, well, it's people being creative and it's really smart people coming up with ideas, maybe something like this, right? To fulfill those niches that don't exist, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And there's almost every demographic you can imagine is underrepresented in some way in literature. And I think people being able to have more stories that speak to their backgrounds and experiences is going to be incredible. AI is going to explode that. Also, speaking of RPGs, like it's hard to have a good RPG, like tabletop RPG group because a really good dungeon master is really hard to find. AI is going to be the best dungeon master ever. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and be able to run games anytime you can get your group together and even do like side quests if you can only get one or two people, in a sesh and keep up with everything and get to know you and be as humorous or dark or difficult as you want. So I see a lot of potential. I also see a lot of threats, and if you only see one or the other, then you're not really looking at the situation very clearly because there's a lot of both coming.
It's not a robot problem. It's not an AI problem. It's still a human problem. And I think that that's the wool over people's eyes, to use that word.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you make it sound more optimistic than most people do, and that's very refreshing.
I'm a medium timeline optimist. I'm a short timeline pessimist. And I'm a long timeline pessimist. Like the heat death of the universe or the big crunch, something is going to end all life in this universe. Nothing matters in the long run. In the short run, in the very short run, like enjoy every breath you have. We're so lucky to be alive. We're floating through space on a wet rock. Like, how is this? This is insane what we're doing right now. All of us, we're on this spaceship together, and it's perfectly designed. Like we carry all the oceans and all the food and everything we need with us. But there's a short timeline where it's like, are we gonna have a midterm elections? Like we have a president who's like saying maybe we don't need elections. We have a war in Ukraine that uh, beggars belief that we can still act like this in the 21st century. Um, so we have these crazy, crazy problems in the short term. And in the 15 billion year range, we have problems that are probably intractable. But in the medium term, like next few thousand years, I think really cool stuff's going to happen, and we're seeing kind of the beginning of something that's going to be very interesting for future generations. So, choose your window and be as cheerful or dour as you want to be, depending on how far ahead you're looking.
How did you put that? The short, medium, and
Well, I mean, I I'm a medium term optimist. I think like
medium term
the
optimist. That's it.
yeah, I think like we have hundreds and thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years of like flourishing. We do not have, 100 billion years of anything. And so we need to like let go of this idea of permanence and direction. This is way off topic, but I highly recommend everyone listening to do a little bit of digging on this. But when we moved from a polytheistic worldview to a monotheistic worldview, we went from a view of cycles and renewal and things moving in a circular fashion to this story of a hero's journey within our deity of progress heading somewhere. And I think nothing has done more harm to the human psyche and civilization than this idea that we're on our way to someplace. We're not. We're in the middle of this cycle that everything came out of nothing and is heading to nothing. And we should embrace that and enjoy the moment for what it is and get out of this mindset of like, progress is important and we're on an upward slope to something. Like, that's complete nonsense. There's no way to sustain that story for trillions, hundreds of trillions, quadrillions. Make up a number, it ends. And so accept that, and your life can begin for the first time.
I love
Way
that.
off topic,
No, no,
but
no.
it's super important.
No,
No,
that
excellent.
was
It's a great worldview. Honestly, it really is.
Yeah.
And more of us should look that way. In terms of economic growth, in terms of development of land, there's a lot of opportunity where we could ingest that and integrate it into our lives.
Yeah, and it's this idea this cyclical idea is not something I've. I mean, history repeats itself. You get to say that to yourself, and yeah, you're looking at the conflicts happening now. It does beggar belief. Like the idea of empires and spheres of influence that is the conversation now, right? Like they're talking about invading Greenland. Like I saw someone online say this is the worst timeline, but maybe not. It's not a timeline. It's just a cycle, right? Like it's we need to break, in this
Yeah,
pace.
but our history is full of this. I mean, we still haven't reconciled the slave trade, and a lot of not just the United States, a lot of countries, and the harm. We're still dealing with that, and just the amount of misery and two world wars. Just we're only 100 years removed from those atrocities. And when those happened, people also were like, I thought we were beyond this. Like this, this is the war to end all wars and that kind of rhetoric. So
Yeah.
we've always been surprised at our depravity, and then we do it again.
And would you say that the optimism, just the positive outlook on life that you generally have, is really built into this dystopian story that you are really known for? And this, sorry to go, this is a two-part question, I guess. Do you ever say, hey, this theme that is strong to me, it's not relevant or it's not coming up enough, or I want that to be more powerful in season 3 or 4? Does that happen?
Yeah, I didn't have to with the Silo series because Graham Yost, who is showrunning it, he when he first encountered the books, he was in a deal with Sony back in the day, and they wanted to develop this. This is before did a deal with Ridley Scott originally and Fox. And when the rights came back, Graham and AMC were there to and the folks at Sony were now at Apple, and these were people who wanted to do this because they loved the message. And so when I was in the writers' room, like they knew exactly what kind of story they wanted to tell. And that's the second part of your question. It leads to the first part, which is the story has always been about hope. The book was the original dedication, and Wool was for those who dare to hope. And I love this idea that people who have hope are courageous. They're not naive. They're not Pollyanna. They're just they have courage. And the heroes in the story of Silo are those who are brave enough to think the world could be a better place. And I still almost every book that I sign Dare to Hope, because that's the message that I want to get across. And the reason I'm persistent with that is if you look at dystopian stories and end of the world stuff like I write, you'll think that it's from a pessimistic worldview, but it's not. It's showing, even if we tear things down to their root, we're the same humans that came out of, a tribe of 200 living in the savannah or up in the trees, and we came from that, and we built, Las Vegas out of the mud. Like we built the computers we're all looking at right now. We built that out of mud. And if you wiped us down to 200 humans, we're going to end up right back here. There's no, the idea that we could end civilization is absolutely absurd. We came from no civilization. We built it from nothing. And so wipe us out until there's 200 people living on Falanga, a little island off of Fiji. And within 10,000 years, the curious people of Falanga are going to build boats and populate the planet and build Las Vegas again. So, yeah, that's I just don't see the pessimism necessary to create like a end of world scenario based on anything that we know of in human nature or technology. There's just absolutely no way that we could go backwards to anything worse than what we came from.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Hugh. We appreciate your time. More to come from Tales from the Bridge in the weeks and months to come. Movies, books, interviews with authors and filmmakers. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.